at one point, the discussion went from just residing on blockchain and relying on the cryptography to actually using IPFS as the platform in which all the communication will be happening on. So with some of the best experts in the area on this call, I want to open up the conversation for you guys.
Okay. Is there anything particular you want us to start with?
Not me.
I would love some introductions and learn about who you all are and kind of what role you play and your background and what your interest is.
Well, I'd like to start. Aviv and I like to go to Waffle House and drink Tito vodka and smoke cigars.
How do I get in on that? How do I get on that one?
Yeah, well, you're already in. Everyone in this club.
That's how you get in.
That's right.
All right, I like it. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for having me here. My name is Dietrich Ayala. I work for Protocol Labs. I'm the ecosystem lead on the IPFS project. I think that for me, I think the Koda project attacks a couple of different really interesting problems. Like distributed computing itself still pretty challenging, and you like user space, and you're not a whole lot of applications that have really taken off there. But the opportunity here to learn more about cooperative computing models, I think, is really fascinating and interesting. And particularly some of the challenges that Darnell brought up, I think are really good, make IPFS a really good fit. Things like user first control of data is kind of how IPFS comes out of the box. The cryptographic verification of data on request point, as opposed to later, or putting trust out of bounds, out of band in how those requests are made, also really applies to the control of and assurances around malicious code execution locally and things like that. I think really interesting fits there, but also just the ambitious vision that Koda has. Like John is just describing here is for me really important to exercise and push at the edges of what some of these technologies are capable of doing. Exactly. IPFS is not finished. IPFS is not done. We're just getting started. We're at 0.7 will be released soon, but there's still really a lot of work to do around what the protocol is capable of. And honestly, IPFS sits on top of a stack of tools. IPLD, libp2p, and these things are components that you can take apart and put together in ways that are going to meet your use case. This use case, I think, really pushes on some important things that we want to do in the protocol. So I'm really excited that you've chosen to use IPFS, and I think that your use case is going to really be something for us to learn from. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with you all.
I'm John Suit. Nice to meet you. My particular interest in this, aside from security, my background's in cybersecurity as well for the last 25 years. At the same time, I've been innovating in analytics and real-time analytics. And so the idea here is, for me, my particular interest is how to, really give this synthetic dog, give Koda a birth that allows for real decentralized AI. So, when I first started talking to Emma and Aviv about this, one of the first thoughts that had occurred to me was that, you have an opportunity to do something really for the first time. IPFS obviously a big jumpstart in this, and I'll get to what I mean in a second. But really the ability to constrain, something and have ephemeral memory, and at the same time, really allow something to learn and grow. You yourself had centralized processing, and you wanted to learn everything at the same time. The first thing you're going to do is start individualizations. You're going to separate parts of yourself into individualizations so that you can have a separate experience and have entropy from the environment that you're operating in, so that you can learn and so that you can grow. And then the next thing you're probably going to do is you're going to constrain yourself to the degree you can to, come up with challenges and overcome those challenges and learn from that. And then the final piece, I'm abstracting away from the technology for the moment, which is kind of a new thing for me, so bear with me, is that we, you need to have ephemeral memory, because, once a Koda learns to walk up the steps, I don't want that Koda to have learned it once. I want it to learn a new way to do it every Thursday. I want it to restart and then share those things with the collective. Share the things with the other Kodas that are trying to help people who are disadvantaged and being able to see and things like that, because the environmental variables will change in each individual household or on the street in the city, and it's not enough, I don't think, to have a Koda learn something and kind of overcome a challenge once. It's going to have to do it and forget how it did it, which is really important, multiple times, and then it can share kind of with the what ultimately could be a collective consciousness of these Kodas. And I think IPFS is a wonderful transport. We need to pay particular interest to the metadata associated with with that system. And obviously, I offered Dietrich some assistance with that. I had done that with nano network technology, kind of the same principles on how you obfuscate in order to mitigate what can be discovered. So they're a little more autonomous, than you would think. But there's a lot of things along those lines. But I think there's a huge opportunity to actually see if something synthetic through decentralized AI can really learn, can overcome obstacles, can actually contribute to its peers, and then ultimately help its owners. I think that'd be really cool.
Yes. Well, hi, everyone. It's great to meet all of you. I'm Stephen, as mentioned. And I guess, part of my background to go through is, I've been, like a lot of you, as an entrepreneur. And I spent probably, the first 20 years of my professional career as a founder of 5 different venture-backed startups. Luckily, they all went through some type of M&A or exit, so it made all the investors happy to kind of give me money for the next round. Or more importantly, actually, the early success was able to then link myself up with other really awesome people that then gave me, kind of stacked the deck for those future companies, right? So it wasn't that I'm like this brilliant entrepreneur. I think I was just kind of lucky to be, entered during the dot-com boom, was able to do one of the ones that actually worked, and then was able to always, collect awesome people along the way. And I've been collecting those people for the last 20, 25 years. Somehow that qualified me to become an investor. And I've been doing, angel investing probably for about 10 or 12 years, or a little longer actually. And then formally with a fund as a VC fund for the last 7 or so. And what really makes it interesting is I'd like to top very quickly just on 2 quick things right before we jump really deep is probably because from that perch, I get to observe a lot of things, particularly at the intersections. Like every 10 years or so, we get, some new consumer whiz bang thing that then pushes the cost structure down. So like, 10, 15 years ago, we got like, the iPhone, right? Which then pushed the cost structure down, which then made just building component hardware, really, really cheap. And I think for the robot, we're seeing a similar thing from some consumer things like the self-driving cars, like, obviously like LiDAR, but like also things like, the sensors and, basically proximity centers, captive centers, things like that have really driven down the cost. And one thing I wanted to highlight, and I know like Emma mentioned that I think prior as well, but I've seen it happen in cycles. If really we're interested to go to the black and white era and study some history, we can talk about how like mainframes have put, other things have been pushed by consumers. So that's actually very exciting, from everything else you all said. I just kind of wanted to highlight that. The other thing is something that Darnell said about GDPR and CCPA. I actually feel like you're have an advantage by not being a free SaaS product, right? Because that was the catastrophic forcing event, right? For those pieces of legislation, from the European Union and then from California. And ultimately, if we weren't in this dysfunctional kind of like Trump COVID year, you would have seen legislation in the United States around it. To be more transparent around that, happy to discuss post-call around that. I'm part of a trade organization. I have been for 20 years, which lobbies Congress, which means every year, except for this year, we kind of go to Congress and like do some lobbying and talk to the representatives. And I met with my rep from San Mateo County, Representative Ashu. And, it's ironic because she and I both live in Menlo Park, and she's talking about like, we're going to regulate with a scalpel, Facebook. Like, you realize Facebook's in your district, like those 20,000 jobs are in your district, right? And, and I even said to her pretty frankly, I said, I get worried when I hear Democrats talking about targeted scalpel regulation. I worry Republicans doing other things, don't get me wrong, right? But specifically when I hear Democrats say they're gonna take a scalpel to business regulation, I get worried because there's all these unintended consequences, where I get worried when I hear Republicans say, oh, we don't need regulation. So don't get me wrong, I'm kind of in the middle on that point. So happy to talk, and there's some folks I can even introduce you to if they're not on your networks to help you kind of word your ULA right? That would help. Because I agree with Darnell, like if you could take that off the table, and then all you have to do is make sure that, you're warehousing this in the United States, all your data, you're using the cryptology, it can be really exciting because you can just clear away all those barriers. And then the only China liability you might have is just really the import tariffs, right? That kind of thing. And then just talking about the opportunity, like I'd love to jump into that, saying is, the robotic guide dog, right? Like holy cow, right? Like we do all this work with digital health. And what's really interesting is people are embracing digital solutions, and especially in a post-COVID world. And this is a digital and physical, of course, but it's purely, it truly is digital, right? So I think that the opportunity, you're in this unique environment where I love going like this. I think we're being recorded, right? Intersections, right? Not like it's a bad thing, right? Meaning is I've always looked at the intersections of one or two things, and like from generically, there's a big intersection today happening with demographic shifts, as well as like some technology shifts. Specifically for the robotic guide dog, we have this technology shift with things like these cheaper sensors that are being driven down by the rush for like self-driving cars and things like that. But things like IPFS, right, which is quite exciting, which to me is such a great leap forward, from the original vision kind of around the blockchain, right? So you have this technology push that's going. But then you also have this like post-COVID acceptance of like these digital solutions for digital health. And then you have this other intersection. So maybe I'm like 3, I don't have enough arms, I have to grow another arm. But you have this other intersection of just the other intersection of just the demographics that are just working in the favor for solutions like this. So it's truly a really great opportunity in that respect.